December 4th, David and a King to Come. 2 Samuel 7, verses 1 through 17. Now when the king lived in his house, and Yahweh had given him rest from all his surrounding enemies, the king said to Nathan the prophet, "See now, I dwell in a house of cedar, but the ark of God dwells in a tent." And Nathan said to the king, "Go, do all that is in your heart, for Yahweh is with you." But that same night the word of Yahweh came to Nathan, "Go and tell my servant David, thus says Yahweh, would you build me a house to dwell in? I have not lived in a house since the day I brought up the people of Israel from Egypt to this day, but I have been moving about in a tent for my dwelling. In all the places where I have moved with all the people of Israel, did I speak a word with any of the judges of Israel, whom I commanded to shepherd my people Israel, saying, Why have you not built me a house of cedar? Now therefore, thus you shall say to my servant David, Thus says Yahweh of hosts, I took you from the pasture, from following the sheep, that you should be prince over my people Israel. And I have been with you wherever you went, and have cut off all your enemies from before you. And I will make for you a great name, like the name of the great ones of the earth. And I will appoint a place for my people Israel, and will plant them, so that they may dwell in their own place, and be disturbed no more. And violent men shall afflict them no more, as formerly, from the time that I appointed judges over my people Israel. And I will give you rest from all your enemies. Moreover, Yahweh declares to you that Yahweh will make you a house. When your days are fulfilled and you lie down with your fathers, I will raise up your offspring after you, who shall come from your body, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. I will be to him a father, and he shall be to me a son. When he commits iniquity, I will discipline him with the rod of men, with the stripes of the sons of men. But my steadfast love will not depart from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away from before you. And your house and your kingdom shall be made sure forever before me. Your throne shall be established forever." In accordance with all these words, and in accordance with all this vision, Nathan spoke to David. The centuries continue to pass. After Moses dies, God uses Joshua to lead Israel into the Promised Land. They conquer the land and inhabit it for several chaotic centuries in which the nation is very fragmented, far from God, and always at the mercy of their many surrounding enemies. This turbulent period of judges ends when the final judge, Samuel, appoints Israel's first king, Saul. But Israel's first king did not trust God, nor did he obey him. As a result, God chose another king for himself, a man after his own heart. That second king was David, who remains throughout the rest of the Bible as the prime example of all that a king should be. He loved God and had a gift for infecting the people he led with a similar passion for God. His reign was the golden age of Israel, an age of legend where the armies of Israel routed all enemies, a time when the people trusted God so boldly that even one man with a spear could stand against 300 enemy soldiers and slay them all. Later in life, David decides to build a magnificent house for God, a temple worthy of his greatness. Nathan, God's prophet, is delighted at David's heart for God and gives him the okay on the project without first consulting God. God later explains to Nathan that he does not want David to build him a house, and the prophet has to take back his hastily granted endorsement. But God is thrilled at David's love for him. He tells David that it will work the other way around. David will not build God a house, but God will build David's house. A common Hebrew metaphor for a family lineage or dynasty was to describe it as a house. God will establish the house, the dynasty of King David forever. He will do this in two ways. David's son Solomon will build the house of God that David had envisioned. Solomon will build the temple in Jerusalem. God will treat Solomon like a son. When Solomon sins, God will correct him, but he will not cut off David's dynasty because of that sin. But beyond what God will do with Solomon, he will establish David's kingdom forever. There is a son of David yet to come, a king in the lineage of David, who will build a true house for God made of living stones, a temple made up of persons in whose hearts God dwells. This son of David will be a son to God the Father in a way that completely outstrips God's paternal relationship with any other human being. He will be the one to establish the throne of David forever, inaugurating the eternal kingdom of God. Jesus is that Son of David.